Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of the UK Connection. And let me introduce my two co-captains, as always. Mr. Simon Bray, the guy who's wearing glasses I don't recognize, facial hair I don't recognize, a background I don't recognize. I don't even know who he is. And Mr. Steven Reid. What's going on, fellas?
I'm in the usual place doing the usual thing. It's Simon.
As am I. We got all sorts of new things on his end of the Zoom today.
It's like Simon on tour.
Finished. Really?
Dude, I haven't even got started yet. No, anyway. So today, once again, we're going to go back to ranking the songs on classic albums, and we will be doing lots of these in the future. Right, exactly. Thank you, Simon. For some of you watching, you may or may not feel that this is a classic album, but I think if you are a fan of Motley Crue, probably this is the album most people will go to. And so everybody's probably saying, but wait a second, Pete, we know you don't like Motley Crue at all. That is correct. But we have decided that we are going to tackle some of these bands and classic albums that some of us here on the show may not be all that too enamored with. But I will say, back in the day, when Shout at the Devil first came out, I liked it quite a bit. I was a fan. I got off the train a couple of years later, but I have listened to Shout at the Devil 3 times over the last week, 3 times more than I've listened to it in like 35 plus years. And I will say it's exactly as I remember it. So, but before we get started talking about ranking the songs on this album, let's get to beverages first. So, Simon, what little bit of deliciousness you got coming out of a can or bottle on your end?
Thanks for asking, because once again, I've managed to go into performing seal mode, and you asked, that's right. So you get, my friends, and I've got a few of these that you've asked for that I can do over the next few weeks. I've got some Stones Bitter. That's right. I went back to the 1980s and got some Stones Bitter.
I've never even heard of Stones Bitter. I don't know if
really.
It
used to be very big around here. It actually says on it, brewed for Yorkshire. Tell you what, sure as shit isn't made in Yorkshire anymore. Oh no, it isn't. Is it one of the Marston things now? I feel like it is. Yeah, Molson Coors. Yeah. No, anyway, I've got it. But see, more importantly, and I think this is really important, and I think this is the only real way to be as metal as fuck for the crew. I'm drinking it out of a flagon.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Would it be impertinent to ask why you have a flagon?
The bought one. just for shits and giggles.
I gotta say, if I saw one of those somewhere, I would sure as shit buy it as well. That is the most awesome.
Everything else currently sucks. That's all.
I'm
merely jealous. That's all it is.
Simon, my birthday is January 5th.
Mine's the 25th of October for anybody listening. It's like next month now, isn't it?
On this cheap charade, I got enough things sent to me already.
Anyway, I love that. That is as metal as anything I've seen in a long time. That's awesome.
Yeah,
hopefully the beer is just as good.
Yeah, that would have been perfect for something like the Power Wolf show.
Yes, I was just going to say, yeah.
Hadn't seen the flagon at the time, but now I have.
Oh, well, there you go. Cool. And it is very cool, to be fair. So before I tell you what this, look at that. Okay. Oh, before I even consider telling you about that, I want to say we obviously record on a Saturday, but in the real world we call that a Thursday. So last week on Thursday we didn't record because I went to see Lillian Axe in Edinburgh. And Simon, when we were off air, asked me how many people would be there, do you think? Because he didn't think there would be very many. Simon was right. I reckon about 40, 50 at a push. Yeah. I mean, to be fair, that's about 50 is probably about a quarter full in Barnumans. It's not a big place. But 40 is a small enough crowd. There's a strange kind of partition in the place. They've obviously had to put something in to stop the kiln from falling down when they knocked it through to make this oblong venue. But what it does is it creates this area where people stop. And only the diehards go beyond that anywhere near the stage. I have lost count of the amount of gigs that I've been at in Bannerman's where the band have gone, would you like to come forward and meet us? Come join us, listen to the music.
Please come down.
Please. Oh, very, very much, please. So it was one of those events because it wasn't very well attended. It was brilliant. I mean, I had Lily and Axe were outstanding. A band I've loved for years and years and years, all the way back to the Love and War album. So we're going 30 odd years ago and around there. Riot Act were the second band on the bill, which is a kind of, there's now two versions of Riot out there doing their thing. Mike Ventura's in that band, so they did songs from that kind of era. They were great. But I just wanted to say thank you to Liam, who is the drummer in the opening band called Kane, Kaine, because he's a big fan of the show and a big fan of the channel, and he took his time to come over and say hello and just say how much he enjoys the absolute nonsense that we talk on a Thursday, Saturday. So thank you very much indeed. It was nice to hear. They've got an album out called Reforge the Steel. It's very Iron Maiden, it's kind of Judas Priest, it's very traditional. Man, it was good. So I just wanted to give him a shout out because it was really kind of him to come and say hello. So anyway, in my glass, okay, this is an Abernite Brewery glass, and you can't tell that because this is just so luscious. And I haven't had this one before. I know I talk about this place often because it is really local to me. This is, okay, Dunkelweizen, okay, dark wheat beer. Okay, I don't quite know what's going on here. Really not
Was
very
that a stick up?
Well, it appears to be.
The guy in the hoodie's being
The
stuck
guy with
up.
Yeah, the faceless guy in the hoodie has been stuck up by the guy that's got a face. Oh no, that's a bottle. Look, that's a bottle.
Yeah, but it does look like it.
Yeah. I'm not
So the
really
faceless
sure,
guy's a foreigner, it's also then,
not
isn't it?
really sure what this is.
Cock.
Well, it's detached.
Well, look here.
I mean, to be fair, that's a thing. Okay, so moving on. All right, so this is a wheat beer, dark wheat beer. Okay, let's see, because it looks fantastic. I've never had this before. Oh, smooth, creamy to die for. That is outstandingly good. One of these weeks, I'm going to be like Peter and go. Well, that one that
Hopefully
you
not.
hated
Hopefully that
weeks ago.
doesn't happen.
But yeah, that is a belter. That is fantastic. There you go.
So I am very excited. I couldn't wait to open this, so I cracked it open and poured it already. I've gone to, I'm a big fan of Vermont, okay, the state of Vermont, and they have a lot of really good breweries in Vermont. And the last time my wife and I went there, we went to a place called the Burlington Beer Company in Burlington, Vermont, and I love their beers. And now my local beverage center carries all of their beers. So I picked up something called Raspberry Whale Cake. It is actually a raspberry cream ale, 5%. Kind of, I don't, like, again, I have no idea what the whale has to do with anything. Raspberry cake, I get. Cream ale, I get. I don't know what the whale's got to do with it, but it's a pretty cool little bottle. Their beers are generally really good, and I put it in kind of one of these type of little goblet things, and it's got a interesting color because it's slightly, red, but it looks got the body of a cream ale. So, and it smells like raspberry.
It's like whale.
It tastes like whale. No, it's really good actually. It's not a sour beer because I don't like sour beers. It tastes like a cream ale, but it's got that little hint of raspberry. Very smooth, very refreshing. I like it. I'm happy I chose. Could have been disastrous, but it was not.
It could have been. I'm going to go as far as to say this is one of the favorite things that I've drunk on the show.
So that you said it was a Dunkelweizen?
Yes.
So I actually, when I went to the beer store yesterday, I actually saw, because I usually buy German beers quite a bit, and I bought some German beer for my father, and I saw a couple Dunkelweizens there, and I'm going to have to go back and buy one of them.
Yeah, well, this is outstandingly good, so I would suggest you do.
Okay. Yeah, dark wheat beer. I'm normally not a huge wheat beer guy, but German, like Hefeweizens, are pretty good. I like German wheat beers. So cool. Well, we all did really well today on the beer front, so that's good. So as we normally do with these things, we go each turn round. We're going to rank these songs on Shout at the Devil from our least favorite to our favorites. At each turn, we'll each give 2. So Simon will kick us off with 11 and 10. We'll all do that. Then we'll go 9 and 8, so on and so forth. So, yeah, no surprise. I do not own a copy of Shout at the Devil. I'm sure nobody's. Yeah, there you go.
Oh, nice. An additional pressing, is it, Simon?
Give it up to me.
Yeah, gotta be. That's what mine used to look like.
Yeah, nice. Very nice.
I don't actually think I have played this, like you said, that actual piece of vinyl in the last 35 years. As you know, I have it in the house, don't I'm sat here at the bottom of the stairs. Took it out the other week, and then I had to dig it out, and there's no electricity, so we haven't actually physically played that vinyl for the last 35 years, I don't think. But this is my fault, isn't it? It was me who said, why don't we do Shout at the Devil? I cannot remember why I had that thought.
Because you were listening to it. Why that happened, I don't know.
Why?
You messaged me out the blue and said, I'm listening to Shout at the Devil. Why don't we cover that? And I was like, okay.
Because it's not something I would normally turn to. No, and I haven't really in the last 8 years. So I don't know why I did. But it's probably while I've been sat outside, living outside the house for the last few weeks while it's been rewired. So I thought, I'll tune myself up by listening to the Crew. Yeah. Yeah, just before we get into the choice, I think it's important to note that if we were to read the liner notes, and I know you're a big fan of doing that, Steven Reid. This album was recorded on Foster's Lager. Really? Budweiser, Bombay Gin, and etc. I mean, Jesus, really? That explains a lot. That said, you know how sometimes you've got an exact time and a place, and you know why you bought a record, and you know where you bought it from. Yeah, don't remember this at all. But I can only assume that I saw the pentagram, and 17-year-old me thought that's really cool because the big guy downstairs has got all the great tunes. And then I looked at that and I thought, hey, that looks so much like Mad Max. That must be cool. And I mean, it's only in the here and now that you look at Mick Mars on that one and you think, my God, he looks like all the girls that hang around TK Maxx in Preston with their massive lips and stuff. Bit like Punky. Yeah, they're very much ahead of their time. And I know that facetiously, Stephen, did we not say to each other, I'll give it a listen, I'll get another one, and that'll do. I have listened to this at least twice a day for the last 3 weeks. And I know, and fucking hell, really. Oh, jeez. I don't loathe it. I don't love it. But all my, like people said, all my preconceptions of this record are exactly what they were before. They're now absolute conceptions. The worst song, I say song, I don't mean that, is In the Beginning. What's the point of that shit? Really? I think I've been on record as saying that I don't like that kind of stuff. It's just so Spinal Tap. And we're going to mention the Tap again very, very shortly. But that's the 11th. Really? Thing. Helter Skelter. I cannot tell you how much I dislike that. But I'm going to have a right good go. Firstly, anybody who's ever met me knows that I'm not a huge fan of John, Paul, George and Ringo, the Beatles, as Casey Kasem always used to say. But do I want a really lumpen version that somebody I do? Oh, right, okay. That somebody could be doing it in the town centre of Accrington this Saturday. Do I really want a lumpen version of that? No, I don't. And then you think, oh, it's so dark and spooky because like Charles Manson or that. No, it's just like Really? No, just no. No, I mean, things are going to improve, but no, I think we can all agree on that, don't you? No. That's the second worst song. Sorry, 10th best song on the album. We've lost people already, haven't we?
Well, Motley Crue fans, maybe.
Yeah. It's going to get better.
For you both.
Sorry?
Okay. My question is, okay, what do these albums have in common? Breaking the Chains by Simon's favourite band ever, Dokken. Okay. Lick It Up by Kiss. Built to Destroy by Michael Schenker. Canterbury by Diamond Head. Mean Streak by Y&T. What do those albums have in common? They were released the same month as this album.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And this album sold 4 times platinum.
Yeah. Go figure, right?
Colour me genuinely confused. Okay. This has been a bit of a journey for me. I've had this album for years and years and years. I was 10 when this came out. I probably did hear it when I was 10. So whoever's playing the drinking game, yeah, my brother bought it. Cheers, up on me. Okay. And he really liked the Crue back then. And I did too, because my brother liked them. Okay. I don't know when I bought this, but it certainly wasn't as long ago as that. But I've had it for a long, long time. It's an interesting listen, isn't it? I think the thing that strikes me most going back to this album, I'm probably going to mention it again later on. Tom Werman does the production. It's rubbish. It's absolutely rubbish. I mean, the guitars genuinely go on this album. I mean, they are so thin. It's unbelievable. It's quite bonkers to think that this was actually classed as heavy metal back in the day. I think that was based more on this than it was on this, to be honest with you. But yeah, I'm with Simon in the beginning. I mean, the Crue were trying to be Satanists. I don't know. Were they? Was that the shtick they were trying to do? I don't know. But what that has got to do with anything. I mean, you listen to it and you think to yourself, did I forget that this was a concept album? it's like the introduction to it. It's like The Elder by Kiss. The introduction's there, and then they kind of go, story, let's make the songs about. But with this, there's like this introduction, and you just go, huh? I mean, they say the word devil in the next song, but really? So anyway, yeah, that's number 11, because I actually forgot it existed until I went back and listened to this. I genuinely put this on and thought, when did they do that then?
Totally not necessary, yeah.
Totally not necessary. And if there's one thing a classic album should have, it's a great opening. Well, that opens the album. And a great close. Because Danger's rubbish. It's not good. It's really not good. I mean, Vince Neil's an interesting vocalist. I think it's probably what I'm going to call him here, because by modern standards, it's genuinely quite head shaking that some of the vocals got onto this album. They are that bad. There's no two ways about it. Whether you like Motley Crue, whether you don't, Vince Neil's not the best singer in the world. Bags of attitude. He looks great in the videos. He can strut and preen. He's a front man par excellence at this stage, you know? But it's just not a good song. Totally forgettable. One of the longest on the album.
Yeah.
It's just really bizarre. The guitars are so just ho-hum, middle of the road. They do nothing at all. And there's keyboards on it. I forgot all about this kind of stuff too. And they're really insipid. I mean, you could just take that off the album and nobody would notice, in my humble opinion. So that's my bottom two. That's my least favorite two on this album.
Well, I'm going to echo those. In the beginning, useless, unnecessary, throwaway. I could go on. It's just kind of there. I'm with Simon. I don't like intros that give you nothing, because if it's going to give you nothing, then you should have left it off the fucking album, right? So that's in the beginning for me. Number 10, I'm going to go with Danger. To me, you know, and just to back it up a little bit, I mean, I bought Motley Crue's first album when it first came out, because that at the time was kind of something a little bit different, because that's kind of a glammy album that was like kind of like an extension of some of the glam bands with a little punk, maybe a little metal. I don't know. I don't find any of this really metal, maybe some of this album. And I thought the first album was kind of fun. And then this album came out, and this album is a bit heavier than the first album. And now they're going for this kind of satanic look and the album cover and all that. But really, there's nothing satanic about any of this stuff, right? Is this all a gimmick? Because then on their next album, they completely changed all over again. So, but anyway, Danger to me is out of all the songs on this album, is a precursor to kind of where they would go next. I think it's kind of this weird pseudo power ballad, I guess. It's kind of mellow. It's got keyboards. Is it kind of catchy? Yeah, maybe. The vocals are kind of weird. I mean, his singing is really weird on this album, and that's maybe putting it mildly. But quite frankly, I'd rather listen to his vocals on this album than any of the ones that came after it. So I have a really weird relationship with this band, in that I would rather hear them do stuff like this all day, any day. Although I probably wouldn't listen to it anyway, even if they did, but than the stuff that they did after this. So, but yeah, Danger to me is just like, it really doesn't fit on this album, which is kind of weird. But it's not surprising, because they did lots of songs like that on the next couple of albums. And of course, everybody knows I don't like that stuff. So so Danger is number 10 in the beginning, number 11. Back to Simon.
My number 9. Yeah, numerous is not my strong point. It's interesting, given what I do for a living. My number 9 is Danger. Oh, Danger! It's about as dangerous as a cuddly toy, isn't it? Let's be brutally honest. And like you say, you just think, well, thank God that's finished. Oh shit, it's going on. Yeah, it's carrying on. Yeah, yeah. And I am one of those people, I listen to albums from beginning to end. It's got to happen. Got to happen. Sometimes I'll even sit out on the drive. Hello, drive. You just there. I sit out on the drive and don't come in until the album's finished, because that's how anal I am. Sometimes I make an exception, and today I did. Yeah. My number 8 is what's it called? Oh, God Bless the Children of the Beast. Now, we really are very much in Spinal Tap mode at this point, aren't we? This is the absolute lick my love pump moment, isn't it? Do. Oh, that's nice. That's really nice. That's lovely. Clearly we've heard Randy Rhoads and do some shit like that on Aussie records. And, that's nice. God bless the children of the beast. What are you, 7? Really? What? What? And he's so nice up until that point. It might lead nicely into Helter Skelter, though I can't imagine anything would. But the guitar is lovely. I actually think Mick Moyes is pretty good on this album.
Yeah.
On the rare occasions when you can hear him. Yeah. I think you very often see Mick Moyes can't play guitar. Oh yes, he can. He's the perfect guitarist for this band. And I think there are times, as I will point out later, where I think he's really, really good. And he's pretty good on this one. God bless the children of the beast. Oh, I'm so scary. No. Yeah.
Well, that's my number 9. That's my number 9. God bless the children of the beast, because it's just. I'll ask the same question again. I genuinely have to stop again and go, is this a concept album? Because it's really oddly placed. Right? If In the Beginning was at the beginning, well, you could kind of get away with God Bless the Children of the Beast if it closed the album out, because they reference each other kind of lyrically on title and all this various thing. And it is the sort of thing that some bands and albums would close on. You've had your opening, you've got your meat and potatoes in the middle, here's a little bit of dessert at the end, that little thing that makes you go, oh, okay, that was a little bit different. I'll remember that, because that's the end of the album. And this song goes, God, what is that all about? It's so throwaway. And it comes 3/4 of the way through side 1. So any momentum that might have built up by that stage is just It's just absolutely knocked on the head. You just presume that side one's going to finish, and it doesn't. It's really, really bizarre. It's a nice little instrumental, and it is a nice little instrumental. It just has no place, certainly no place where it is on the album, whether it's got any place on the album or not. I'm not sure at all. There you go. And my number 8 is probably going to be quite controversial for people who really like this album, because it's 10 Seconds to Love. I just think that for a 4 times platinum album in the US, the back end of this album is really poor. It really just goes absolutely nowhere. I mean, lyrically, this is the kind of thing that Kiss have been doing for about a decade. It's just so base level, it's frightening. But I mean, the riff sounds like the sort of thing that Quiet Riot would have done for Mental Health and gone, nah, let's not bother. It's really just, it barely sounds finished, the whole song. And what really has surprised me going back to this, because I could probably sing you the chorus of most of the songs on this album without having gone back and listened to it again, it's just how bloody basic some of this stuff is. Considering that they really were, not just on the back of this album, but for the next decade and a half, everywhere. They were absolutely everywhere. The album that really sets that up is so basic that it's quite mind-blowing. And 10 Seconds to Love, which is one of the better known songs of this album, for me falls right into that category where you kind of go, how did this click into place for this album? It's very weird. But there you go. That's my next 2.
My number 9 is Helter Skelter. Yeah, it's kind of heavy and raucous, but do we need another version of this song? No. Unnecessary. Totally unnecessary. Number 8, 10 Seconds to Love. You know, it's kind of got a memorable, catchy, anthemic chorus, but man, the song is so plodding and basic. I mean, it's really basic, really basic. And I remember back in the day, a lot of people I knew loved that song, and I was always kind of like, yeah, not quite for me. I will say, Steven, I do want to, you mentioned before, I think Simon also did as well, how you guys think that the production and the guitar tone of Mick Mars on this album is pretty bad and thin. But I got to say, here we go again. I will take his tone on this album any day of the week over the shit on all those other albums. Because I, quite frankly, thought one of the reasons why I stopped listening to this band is I could not take his guitar playing or his riffs or his tone on any of the albums afterwards. And I wanted a little more balls. Even though this album is not produced that great, I still think that his like weird chainsaw tone guitar riffs, to me anyway, I'd rather listen to him doing this than any of the other stuff. So I don't know. It ain't great, but at least it's like, it's got some shred of, metallic muscle in it, which I don't find much of the other Motley Crue repertoire has. So I don't mind it all that much, but I agree with you. It ain't great. So
that's an interesting thought, because I would guess on the way that we're going here, right? Because we have not discussed this beforehand, but I would guess on the way that we're going here, we're probably not going to do a favourite, least favourite wild card of Motley Crue at any point.
We're not, under any circumstances.
Okay, then. So I will put it out there, because I think Peter's probably mentioned it with the debut. Okay. What is your favourite Motley Crue album, Simon?
It's this one.
This one.
I'd like, as I may have said on Twitter, it's not the best, because the best one doesn't have Uncle Vince on it.
Yes, yeah.
The best
absolutely, 100%. Yep.
Absolutely. The best one is
my opinion.
Yes, absolutely. I will put my card on the table for anyone that is a Motley Crue fan that's watching this going, I wish these three would fucking shut up, right? I will put my cards on the table and say that I played the shit out of Girls, Girls, Girls and Dr. Feelgood. I absolutely played both of those albums to death. Now, I haven't really listened to them since I stopped playing them to death, or until I maybe killed them. I'm not sure which. And obviously there are certain songs of both albums that I still hear now, because you do still hear the title track, the Girls, Girls, Girls. You hear Kickstart My Heart.
Home Sweet Home.
On occasion, yeah. And I still don't mind them. I prefer that era where at least they sounded, and maybe that's why you don't like it, Peter, they sounded polished. They sounded, in my humble opinion, there are two guys in this band that are really talented. Mick Mars is really talented, and Tommy Lee can play drums. Okay, and I will stand by those opinions. And I think, at least in terms of sound and production and presentation, at least they got a chance to show it. Tommy Lee on this album spent, and I mean, I do like to go back and watch the videos of the time when we do this as well. He spends half his time with his arm here with the drumstick down here somewhere going, this guy could play drums. And he's going, 10 seconds to love. That's for a whole song.
That's right.
What's
interesting though is like Girls, Girls, Girls and Dr. Feelgood and those albums, that was Motley Crue. This album, which hooked a lot of us, and the debut album, not really what Motley Crue were all about. As we
do like the debut album,
yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
Me, this is the only really Motley Crue that I can kind of stomach. That's just me. You know.
I mean, I haven't tested it. I haven't gone back and listened to those two albums. I'm going to do it now, having spoken about it on this, and I'm going to see what I think. Be interesting.
Simon is spot on, though. The album without Vince is a good album, and maybe that's not even that Motley Crue-ish either. And maybe that's a good thing. I don't know, but that is a good album. You know?
I'd go as far as the Karabi album's excellent.
Yeah,
I really like the Motley Crue album, and I even really like there's a little 4-track EP that came out alongside it. I made the effort to get that. It's really good too. Really like that, and I was actually quite disappointed when he got booted out of the band. But there you go. Yeah. Sorry, Simon. Number 7.
7, Red Hot. Just remind me how that goes.
Can I sing you that one? I probably can't actually. No.
Like I said, I have genuinely listened to this album absolutely at least twice a day for the last 3 weeks since we decided we're doing it. Can't remember how it goes. So I'm just sticking it somewhere in the middle. I'm looking at the lyrics. Red hot, to the top. We are red hot. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Okay. No, it's not helping me out. It really isn't. Next, 10 seconds to love. If they'd have spelt it, 10 seconds with a Z to LUV, then they would have, aped Slade, and it would have been a million times better. But some of the good songs on this record are vaguely Slade-ish. You know what I mean? They that sense of anthemicness, he says, possibly making up a word.
Anthemic.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, very much so. 10 seconds to love. We're in all right. Sorry, yes, Steve.
A red hot. It is. I've got it. It's gone in.
Right. Okay. It's just still no. Yeah. Just I think we're now venturing into the kind of like all rightness.
Yeah.
And then you think, well, this band sold a lot of copies of this record.
Yeah.
It's all right. Yay. We've got halfway through and it's all right. Yay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm in completely agreement with that.
And there are, as we know, Stephen, plenty of people out there who think it's almost godlike in its geniusness, which is absolutely fine if that's what you think. But to me, it hasn't stood the test of time.
Yeah, we go to great pains when we do the least favourite shows to say that it's about the journey. Often it's about the journey or about where you came in or what you were doing in your life at the time. And I can't imagine this. I mean, as I say, I was 10 when this came out. But I can't imagine this being a kind of slightly older teenager's soundtrack. That I can imagine, I have to say. I can kind of get that vibe where it is maybe, compared to what else was out there, quite at this point, dangerous, rebellious, I mean...
Ozzy Osbourne, this is the era of, Ozzy.
Your parents are not going to like this,
no.
Okay? And your parents are not going to like this. And somebody, and apologies to who it was on Twitter, did actually say, is it okay to admit that I got into Motley Crue because the girls liked them? So there's maybe that too. There's a kind of party vibe here and all. And the party vibe actually is probably before this and after this, to be fair. That's not really what you're getting from here.
No.
But I do understand that it can capture a moment, and especially kind of being mid-80s. I do get it. I didn't take that journey with this album. So I'm not coming back to it fresh because I do know it. but coming back to it, without that journey, I do listen to it and go, well, my number 7's Helter Skelter, and I'm still not really enjoying this at all. You know, there's 11 tracks here, and I'm really, I'll be honest with you and say, right, when my brother listened to this album, I had no idea this was a cover version. Okay, because I was 10. So I had no idea this was a cover version. So it actually took me until 1989 when Vow Wow covered it. And everybody went, why is that a Japanese band covering the Beatles? And I'm going, oh, they're not covering Motley Crue then. And to be fair,
you didn't look at the credits and say Lennon and McCartney.
I was 10.
You clearly weren't allowed to print the words.
10. That years old. The only Beatles we had in the house. Well, the only Beatles. I knew who the Beatles were when I was 10 because we had the Magical Mystery Tour on cassette in the house.
Simon, in other words, Steven wasn't like laboriously going through those liner notes and stuff till probably a few years after that.
That's only come recently, has it? Right.
I was busy memorizing what order all of the Star Wars figures were on in the back of the cards.
Oh, okay. The important stuff, yes.
That's what I was doing at this stage. Okay. Now, I'll admit that Helter Skelter has been crude. It does sound like a Motley Crue song. And that's why I didn't know it was the Beatles. Does it sound like the Beatles? Well, only if you kind of know where it comes from, because it kind of even stands out in the Beatles catalogue from that time. The guitar tone, it is edgy, it is dangerous. And Motley Crue don't do much to it, but it doesn't stand out on this album as, where the hell did that come from? It joins the flow. But it's not very good. That's my humble opinion. So number 6 for me is Knock 'Em Dead, Kid. Is there I put a comma in there. Is there a comma in it? Yes. That's unusual in a song title.
Kid.
Yeah, it's unusual in the song title. It's like the band Drive, she said. There's not many band names have got a comma in it, but there you go. Okay. And I would say, as Simon did with his number 6, or 11, that things are starting to look up here. There's a cool groove here, right? And Mick Mars is making the most of at least getting a chance to do something. Do you know? He always did and always has the little staccato riff really well. And that's what's on play here. And I quite like that. You know, Tommy Lee gets to play a little bit. Vince Neil has a bit of a snarl about him. He's a little dangerous here. I quite like that. He's much better when he's singing in a little bit of a low register. It's not quite so comedy, for want of a better turn of phrase, because it can be a little comedy at points with what he gets away with. But it's still pretty safe, it has to be said, do you know? And for such a dangerous band on a dangerous album, it's still pretty safe. But I don't mind Knock 'Em Dead, Kid.
Cool. Well, my number 7 is Knock 'Em Dead, Kid. Yeah, I mean, you know, it's kind of a decent enough headbanger. I mean, the chorus is kind of catchy. I like his guitar solo on it. You know, I'm generally not a big fan of Mick Mars in general, but I think when you let him play, he's actually not too bad. So that's my number 7. Number 6 is Red Hot, Fast and Furious, kind of speed metal-y for Motley Crue. Back in the day where these guys, you know, kind of wanted or could crank out some old school heavy metal the way it should be done. But I think they forgot about that shortly after this album. But yeah, I don't mind Red Hot too much. It's the fastest song on the album. It's kind of heavy, but whatever. It's my number 6.
So, I mean, I've got 5 left.
Yep.
You do.
Brilliant. Everything's going so well. I was just having a little count. Excellent. My number 5 is Knock 'Em Dead, Kid. Yes. And now we're hurtling towards the good stuff. Yeah, I'm happy to go as far as good. Yeah. This is the good stuff. This is you know where we're getting going. This is where you can actually think, yeah, I can see why that sold quite a lot. It's a good tune. It's a good tune. The guitars are good. The drums are excellent. We're getting going. This is good. I like it. It's a good show. Even Vince doesn't annoy me on this one, but he does annoy me, which is weird, on my number 4, which is Shouts at the Devil. Probably about 15 seconds ago, I looked up the lyric for Shout at the Devil, and before the middle chorus, it says, it apparently says, my head's spinning round and round, but in seasons of wither we'll stand and deliver. Be strong and laugh and shout, shout, shout at the devil. Now what I hear from that one is shout at the devil. Just yeah, pretty good song.
Saying, I don't know.
Slightly tainted by the vocals. Good song. Good song.
Heavy song.
Yeah. And you know, I thought it's not just him. I have a similar kind of thing. He said, thinking, fuck it, let's go down the controversial road with Axl Rose. Yeah.
Paradise City.
Yeah. Very much so. Yeah. So good song with a really good vocals would have been infinitely better.
I agree.
Yeah,
I do too.
Cool.
Yeah. So number 5 for me is Red Hot, right? And I don't mind Red Hot now that I can remember that. Thank you. That's what it does. Okay. But what I do remember is how it opens, because it doesn't open with red hot, a red hot. It opens with dum 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 dum, and then Vince goes, "Oh, well, all right," and I think he's going to introduce the band now. Has nobody told him this is a studio record? The intro is one of those completely pointless bits that the band play on stage that you kind of makes you go, oh, what are they going to do now? That dum 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 dum, and the drummer just go. He's either going to split us down the middle, as Blackie Lawless did, to my left and to my right, or he's going to introduce the band, and then the song starts. So what was that all about? There you go. But I like the guitars in there, I have to say, and the whole album. Yeah, Vince's kind of squeals add nothing to the occasion whatsoever. And it's funny I mentioned Wasp because I think they probably stole their early albums from this kind of song. It really has that kind of feel. It was made for chanting inanely live, it has to be said. And I do think that in that context, I never saw the band at this stage. I saw them on the Dr. Feelgood tour. Was the first time the first and only time I saw Motley Crue. And I do think that a lot of these songs were made to get a crowd going. Now, I don't know if it worked. I presume it did because they had a really rabid live following at the time. And I would imagine that if you'd seen them at this stage when they were kind of clubs into theatres and that kind of stuff, they must have been pretty phenomenal. Do you know? Because they do have a lot going for them. They've got a lot of attitude and a lot of look about them. It's just, for my money here, the songs don't really back it up. Too Young to Fall in Love is my number 4. Maybe Mick Mars doesn't blow anyone's minds in terms of his technicality, especially in the early years, but the rhythm playing on the better songs in this album have real character, and it helps make songs like Too Young to Fall in Love. It's really quite uneventful everywhere else stick in the mind. And that to me seemed to be the point of this album. It was possibly, am I maybe being kind or harsh, I don't know. It's intentionally dumb in many ways. It really is all about just that, give it to them all the time, you know, repeat the chorus and let's hurry up and get to the chorus. There's not really much in the way of nuance anywhere to be found on this. It's simple and it's memorable. And I suppose on those terms, Too Young to Fall in Love is really quite effective. I don't love it, but I put it on and do a sing-along. I do, yeah, I do a sing-along with it. So especially from this era, it really does that job.
I think you've hit the nail on the head. I'm sitting here looking over my notes on each of these songs, and almost every one of them I've written down quite catchy chorus, standard repetitive riffing. I have it on so many of these, and it's like, and the more I think about each of these songs that I've been listening to for the last couple of days, I'm like, yeah, half of these songs all kind of have similar riffs. It's nothing complicated, but it's almost like the payoff on every song is that chorus. And the choruses are pretty good. So I think you're absolutely right. I think that they dumb this down. They're like, all right, we're going to make it kind of heavy, can't miss choruses, and we're going to create these songs for the stage. And I saw them on this tour, opening up for Ozzy Osbourne. They were really good. So obviously it worked, right? My number 5. You guys are going to laugh here. God bless the children of the beast. And I'll tell you why. Because that part of the song is awful. But everything leading up to it is kind of cool because it completely does not fit on this album. It's almost like the guys in the band infiltrated like a Merciful Fate jam session in the studio, and they recorded some little, neoclassical Teutonic little guitar solo-y thing, and they put it on this album. Because it's like, is that even Mick Mars playing this? It's kind of like this weird neoclassical thing. It's kind of cool. It sounds like Michael Schenker, Michael Denner from Merciful. It's like, this is cool. I want to hear more of this. And they never, ever did anything like this ever again. So I kind of like this leading up to the ridiculous ending of it. I wish, take that off and give us another minute or two. And this is really cool. Doesn't belong here on this album at all, but I kind of like it, part of it anyway, a lot. So I remember like in the day, I was like, oh yeah, this is pretty cool. This is kind of like Shankery. This is kind of like, whatever. And then, you listen to the rest of the album, like, all right, this is not quite like that, but whatever. Number 4 for me is obviously ranking higher for you guys, and I like it. I think that the top 4 songs here are really good, actually. Looks to Kill. This was a great single. To me, this Looks to Kill was kind of an extension of the first album, which I dug the first album a lot when it came out. The riff is simple. The chorus is really catchy. Here we go again, talking about the same things over and over again. The video was cool. Seeing it live was cool. This was like, hey, we're Motley Crue, we're the new guys on the block, and yeah, the guys and the gals can't resist this song. That's how cool we are. It is a cool song, and it could rank a little higher, but I think I like my other 3 a little bit better. But yeah, Looks to Kill, a typical song from them early on, and it's a good one. It's a good one. Simon,
Am I doing 3 and 2 or 3 2 1 or
do 3 and 2, yeah.
3 and 2? Okay, excellent. Oh, some people would have really enjoyed that, Stephen, wouldn't they?
It does get in for you there.
Absolutely. Yes. If looks could kill, looks could kill, you're red hot. Yeah. Okay.
Long live Ted Rogers.
Oh, Stephen, he's dead.
Oh, you've ruined that.
Sorry. Very, very dead. Never mind. So my number 3 is Looks That Kill. And you saw Steven Reid, as always, is super correct. There goes my can. Let's just have a quick look at the choruses, shall we? Shout at the devil. Shout, 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 shout at the devil. She's got looks that kill, she's got looks that kill. Bastard, that bastard, dead bastard. I'm seeing a theme here, right? Red hot to the top. Yep. Are you seeing it? Excellent. But do you know what? Like as Peter so correctly says, they stick in your head. This is good shit. This I like this song. I actually like this song a lot. It's a good. Doing the research for this, you see how high this comes up allegedly in the top heavy metal albums of all time. Yeah, no, it's not. It's pop rock. It really kind of. It's very pop. It's not pop rock as in Bon Jovi, but it's not exactly Slayer, is it? Let's be.
No, and I think a lot of us kind of, when this album was released, we kind of thought this was kind of like that. Because look at that album cover, right?
Yeah,
it basically says this is, this is shit.
I'm expecting something like Venom when I say that.
Absolutely, hell yeah.
Absolutely not that, or Mayhem or something. But it's just no, yeah. Yeah. But anyway, Looks to Kill is pretty good. It is, and you know what? I actually agonized over my favorite song on this record. I've weighed it up because there are 2 songs on the album that I know I really like, and I would suggest I'm going to go with Bastard at number 2, and I would suggest that along with the Pentagram, along with the look, it's got a song called Bastard. I'm guessing that's what 16, 17-year-old me really thought. There's a reason why I bought 2 Don't to Fuck by the Dead Kennedys. There's a reason, you know what I mean? There's a reason. Oh, look at me, how edgy I am. Bastard's a really good song. It's a really driving hard rock song. I really like it. It's really good. It's where it actually has proper attitude.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes,
you can actually see, you know, when they say, "Oh, the Crue was so dangerous." Well, they kind of were on Bastard. It's a proper rocking tune, and it gets double thumbs up for me. Took a while, didn't it?
Yes, it did. Yeah. I mean, yeah, my top three, I like my top three. I like my top three quite a lot. In actual fact, there are some really good songs on this. And I would suggest that the title track is probably the most cleverly constructed song on the whole album. I mean, again, the production, in my humble opinion, does this album no favours whatsoever. I haven't heard a remixed or remastered, or I don't even know if there has been. If there was, I probably wouldn't buy it, to be honest with you. But it could make a heck of a difference to this album in a way that an awful lot of them really don't when you buy them. There's a lot of remixing and remastering, and you buy them, you kind of go, nah, that's exactly what I already heard. But I think with this, it could make a massive difference. Yes, sir.
Well, because as you know, because I can't play my vinyl at the moment, I've been listening to it on Amazon Music, and it's the 2021, I think, remaster. And in the beginning, it's really quiet, and then suddenly it gets a bit louder. Well, I just realised nearly went to Poughkeepsie then, didn't I? You're welcome. But yeah, there is a remaster. I think it's got extra tracks as well in CD mode. But yeah, there's still some uneven stuff going on there, even on the remaster.
Yeah, will I make an effort to listen to it? No. I like Shout at the Devil. I mean, the drum breaks are great. You listen out for them, you play them, and that's when you kind of think, this band can play, and they can construct songs, and they can write songs. And I may be giving this a whole lot more credit than it deserves, but listen to what you were saying about Children of the Beast, Peter, and you think, did Motley Crue actually want to write a Merciful Fate album? Was there a concept and a story and these little vignettes that they were going to throw our way, and it was going to be all evil and pentagrams and devils and things, and then we ended up with Looks That Kill? Well, it killed. Yeah, I don't really know. It doesn't really end up that way, but stuff like this, it's big and it's dumb, but yes, I will holler along with shout, because that is the point. That is absolutely the point. And I'm sure that when I saw them live that I did exactly that and looked just as ridiculous doing so. I know it is very fashionable, and if you want to go hunting on the U of cheapness, there are videos out there where people have suggested what Vince is actually really singing on this song. Okay, some are funny, some not so funny, but you absolutely take the point, because in the verse there are just no words here. I genuinely tried to write down what I thought he was singing during this, and ended up writing down a regga jigga licka kickalilla, a highum wow 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 a wow so a aum. That is genuinely, and if people want to see it, I will put it in the comments. That is genuinely what I took out of what he sings. Now, if I could hit those notes up there, and Vince could, to be fair, can't now. Vince could, to be fair, right? I would give it a go, but it is really, there are no words, which is why he spends most of the show like this now with a microphone, because he can't do the and he can't say the words. So what's the point in doing any of the performance? But this is good stuff. I really like this, and it actually shows that Motley Crue back then, never mind what comes afterwards, could genuinely write good songs, structured songs that have passages and moments and hooks. Really clever. So then you've got Looks That Kill, right? Anyone that hasn't watched it, go and watch the 3 minutes and 50 seconds of the video for Looks That Kill and tell me that it's not utterly atrocious. It's just the most denigrating garbage you could possibly imagine. I mean, the women are feral and being caged, and the band are sneering and preening. I mean, Tommy walks out, and actually, I can't do it because I'm sitting down. He comes out and just crouches with a crotch wide open, and just for no reason. He's got a torch in his hand, not like a torch, but like a Bernie thing. And you're just, who even choreographed this utter garbage? And the scary thing is, it's 100% stolen from Kiss. I mean, the pose, and it's interesting because somebody did actually put on the Kiss FAQ forum recently that the crew are selling on their current tour posters of them standing in the poses from the front of Destroyer. Go look at this video and see that silhouette and go, they didn't go Kiss for cool, Kiss for dead cool. But then go look at the back of Animalize and realise that Kiss stole it back. Kiss actually went and looked at this video and thought, if we wear torn clothes, dirty our faces up a little bit and add a little bit of fire, we'll be as cool as Motley Crue. Like, they're copying you. They're copying you guys. Anyway, so this to me tells you why Motley Crue captured people's imagination. It is attitude, attitude, attitude. It's easy to sing. It's repetitiveness. And you've got little bits like the clangingest clang on that bell on the ride cymbal. There are little bits that you listen out for. You think, oh, I like that bit. And it's, by 1983 standards, it's got pentagrams. The album cover's got, crazy things. I mean, this band's got boom louds. I mean, Motorhead do that, do they not? Motorhead are the only other band that are doing this kind of crazy stuff back in the 80s. Must be absolutely mad mental what's on here. It's really not, but Looks That Kill's really quite good. The video's garbage, but there you go. That's my number 2.
Yeah, most of their videos throughout the whole 80s are just like, oh my God.
Well, I don't want to give away too much, but the band that we're covering next week, I've just been watching some of their videos today. Oh, holy hell, they're bad.
Jeez. All right, my number 3, Bastard. Dun, 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 dun. That's a good, heavy, thick, metallic song. I like Bastard. That's a good headbanger. I always like that song. I probably could rank higher, but number 2 is Too Young to Fall in Love. It's got good groove. The chorus, again, can't miss. The riffing is great. The drums are heavy. They've got a handful of these on the album. It's like there's no surprises there, but the formula works. And it's just amazing to me that they kind of, all this kind of stuff that really works on this album, they just stopped doing it. They started doing other things. So let's bring the pianos in. Let's do ballads. Let's remake other songs. And we're now tough guys. We're going to get rid of all the spikes and the leather and the satanic stuff. And we're going to look like tough guys on the corners. It's like, whatever. But yeah, Too Young to Fall in Love. I think that and, Looks to Kill, I think are the two like accessible, really catchy songs on this album, and they're both really good. They're good songwriting there. Again, they're simple songs, but they work, and that's what's good about this album. It's simple, it's kind of heavy, it's got attitude, and it's it appeals to a lot of different people. So that's my number 2.
Obviously, it's my number 1.
Number 1. There you go.
Always has been. It's always been my favorite song on the album. It's a really good pop rocky song. Actually, Vince's vocals work. I even like the bits where he goes, I like that. I like it. Really, Stephen highlighted previously, the rhythm guitar is excellent. It's really, really. It's a proper, well constructed song that doesn't just go. It's always been my favorite song. It remains my favorite song by the Crew. Of anything that they've done, it's the song that drew me in, I think, initially, and it's just a hit. It just you can see why people began to buy into the Crew, even though they then went and kind of dumbed it down even more. Can you believe that they dumbed it down more? Can you believe that? Hey, girls, brilliant. Hey, Tommy, how Derek? Hey, let's get on our motorbikes. Yeah, excellent. Yeah, But Too Young to Fall in Love is just a really good pop rock song. It's my number 1.
It's interesting there because you've just made me think to myself, so what is my favourite Motley Crue song? And it's probably, I think, is it Primal Scream, it's called, from the Decade of Decadence compilation album. And it's only just clicked with me that is what's on this. That's the good stuff from this album, done by grown-ups with a production. Go and listen to this album and then listen to Primal Scream and realize that actually it's exactly the same, but done really well, polished, but gritty and with attitude. Anyway, so my number one from this, well, it's Bastards, because that's all that's left, right? It's arguably the only proper heavy metal song on the whole album, right? It's full throttle. It's got a gang chorus. It's got a great guitar line, you know. And when you're 10, I was 10, okay, when this came out, I mean, what could be better than singing Bastards at the top of your voice when you've got this blaring from your brother's stereo? Other than, of course, when your mum comes through his room and goes, just exactly what do you think you're doing? That conversation did not end very well for me, but anyway, I still have the album.
Should you be listening to this, young Steven?
Well, there are some quite nice looking girls, Stephen. What were you doing?
In the immortal words of Chris Allo, I'd fuck any of those chicks, right?
Oh, dear. So anyway, this Bastards versus on the Crew Gone Punk. Okay, suddenly Vince Neil sounds like he's got loads of authority. Mick Mars he's a right proper guitarist all of a sudden. You know, he's throwing it out there. He's not throwing shapes because Mick can't and couldn't, but he sounds like he is. Nicky Sixx isn't just there to be more mobile than the other guys in the band. He's actually playing on here. You can hear some bass. That's why he's not been mentioned up until now. There's no bass on the album. Yeah. It just doesn't exist. There's no heft about this at all. Do you know? And to be fair, Tommy was and is cool. He is charisma. He had it all. He's a large part, no pun intended, of why this band did exactly what they did. Okay. And to me, Motley Crue, especially with hindsight, whether it was them sitting at the start of Girls, 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 it was said very Scottishly. For anyone that's watching and wonders what Motorhead is, by the way, Motorhead is Motorhead. Okay, I just realised that later on that was very Scottish that came out there. So Motley Crue were always about selling a gang mentality. It was about giving you something to belong to when you were young. And that was really what struck me when I heard this song again. It was about kind of making angsty, youthful guys kind of go, yeah, bastards, yeah. And on that level, actually the whole album works really well. I don't really like a huge amount of this as a grown-up. I really did when I was not just 10, because we listened to these albums for a good few years after that. And I did buy everything up to and including the self-titled Motley Crue one with Karabi. And I've heard the ones after that. I own most of them, sold them because they were not good. But this is cracking stuff. Bastards is a really right good song. And that's my favourite. And probably by a distance, but there are 3 or 4 songs on this, probably 3, maybe 4, that I still really think are pretty good.
Just dawned on me that probably like a lot of the prog fans who watch this show are probably thinking, see everything they've been talking about for the last hour? This is the reason why we don't listen to that heavy metal shit.
Yeah, maybe we maybe need to rectify this with a heavy metal album. We do.
So my number one. So after you get that in the beginning nonsense out of the way, you get dun dun dun. And back in the day when I first heard this album, I was like, "Holy shit! Listen to that heavy guitar. This song cranks." Yeah, and now you listen to it now and you're like, "All right, yeah, Vince is a little ridiculous on this song," but I think it's still kind of one of the heaviest songs on the album. The riff is really cool. The drums are crashing and crushing. I still think "Shout at the Devil" is, to me, my favorite song on this album. But it just reminded me of why I liked this album so much back in the day. And again, I recall vividly being into the first album, which isn't really a heavy album, right? And it's very glammy, but it appealed to us metalheads. And then this album came out, we bought it instantly. And I remember thinking, as soon as this song came out, I'm like, wow, this is way heavier than the album, the first album. This is great. And, and then of course the next album came out and I was like, this sucks. I'm done with this band. And all these years later, I still have the same mindset. But so Shout at the Devil is number one for me. So.
Do you think that maybe the debut with hindsight, because hindsight is a great thing, we're all reasonably older than when this album came out, as are Motley Crue. The debut sounds more genuine.
I think so. Yeah, like I was listening to Livewire the other day, and I'm like, that's still a pretty damn cool song.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I think there's an attitude about the debut that really feels like that was a band that were trying to break out. It was a band that felt they had something to prove. It was a band that were coming from the situation they'd come from, you know, and it was make or break and all that kind of stuff. This to me already sounds, I mean, we're album number 2, we're not megastars yet. It sounds bloated with hindsight. Do you know, there's 11 songs here and you could easily take 3 of them away and not drop the quality in any shape or form, in my humble opinion. I mean, we can only apologise to genuine, real Crue fans, because I will not profess to be that. They have some really good stuff in the catalogue. There is some stuff in this catalogue I really, really like, but it's dotted about. It's here and there. But yeah, that hindsight, going back to this, I was actually surprised really by how bland a lot of it is, in actual fact.
I really like your statement about how maybe this album isn't very genuine, because, you know, in hindsight, when you know the catalog and you've listened to everything that came after it and what came before it, it's almost to me like they put this album out because, oh, heavy metal is popular now. Well, let's jump on that bandwagon. And then as soon as they made a lot of money and got the name out there and everybody was into them, they said, all right, we'll just be the kind of normal band that we really wanted to be, because none of the shit that came after this sounds anything like this album. And this isn't really that similar to the first album either. So it's almost like this was the album it's like that they felt they had to do to break into the big time. And then as soon as they did that, like, all right, enough of that nonsense. Let's just be Motley Crue. Meanwhile, you know, a lot of us, myself included, jumped on board with this album because we thought, you know, we liked the first album. We thought this was really cool. And then everything after was like, this is not what I signed up for. I'm not interested in this at all. And that was me. That's the stance that I took. So, and
it's funny in this discussion that we haven't even mentioned Theatre of Pain. It's like, actually, we've forgotten it existed.
Maybe I try every day. That's what, you know, for me, again, I was a fan, and then Theatre of Pain and Girls, Girls, Girls. And then by the time Dr. Feelgood came out, I was done. I was already done. So I was like, I had enough for the other two. So I was like, But, you know, I mean, Simon brought up a good point earlier on. He was talking about, you look at this album and you're thinking, oh, Venom, Slayer, right? All this other stuff that was coming out at the time, Celtic Frost. And then you listen to it and you're like, you know, that was the image they were portraying. But once you finally got through the record, and even today, all these years later, you're like, God, this is like, the music is totally not representative of everything on the package at all.
Yeah. It took them to mega stardom.
Yeah.
I'd never bought another Motley Crue album after this.
Okay.
But you probably heard
other than a compilation. And while I'm at it, calling a compilation music to Crash Your Cars 2 is fucking despicable.
Yes.
Really,
with the history of this band, that's incredibly bad taste. Incredibly bad taste.
It's not the one that I bought. But even that was called Loud as Fuck. And actually, the early stuff kind of isn't. You know, this one's like quiet as fuck, isn't it? Really, like you said, the production's a bit mousy, isn't it?
Yeah, I really, as I say, for a 4 times platinum album, it's really badly put together in that sense. It sounds, and yeah, there's remixing and remasters. And I know lots of albums have been improved, and you go back and you view them through the prism of when they were made. But you go back and listen to, I'll go back through those, right? Okay, so you go back to Breaking the Chains by Dawkins. Yeah, it doesn't sound great, to be fair. Lick It Up by Kiss sounds fantastic. Built to Destroy by Schenker sounds fantastic. Mean Streak by Y&T. I know you're not a Y&T fan, Simon. I'll assure you, that sounds fantastic.
That's probably the best sounding out of all of them. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. These albums sound really, really good and not ahead of their time in any shape or form. You listen to this and it sounds miles behind them sonically. Whether you like the songs, whether you don't, whether the Crue your favourite band or whether you really hate them, sonically this album is miles behind those. And
Lick It Up, just still, I turn that down before I put it on, because you know it's going to be louder than what I've just been listening to. Yeah. Still to this day, I imagine if I ever get to play anything ever again, I'm going to turn that down quite a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a turn it up album, not because of the mega mental attitude, but because otherwise you can't hear the bloody thing. Yeah, it's thin and it's just, it doesn't do any favors, it has to be said. But I think the biggest flaw for at least half the album is actually the songwriting, because it's the songs are not there. Lots of fun, lots of attitude.
And you could probably arguably say that they grew up as songwriters more on the next couple of albums, even though I still find the material really kind of pedestrian. But they obviously, this album is kind of one note, really is. Other than like Danger, right? Everything else is kind of the same. It's these repetitive, similar type riffs, the big chorus, that's really all you got. Theater Pain, Girls, 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 Dr. Feelgood, which also sold 4 million, 4 million, and 6 million platinum, all three of them. At least you have other material on there that kind of runs the gamut of different styles and things like that. So did they grow as musicians and songwriters? Sure. To me, it was still less interesting. But again, that's just me.
I think by the time they got to Dr. Feelgood, they were songwriters. I think it took them a long time to get to that point. Girls, Girls, Girls has some real highlights if you like Motley Crue, and I really did at that point. There are 2 or 3 really good. So Wild Side still, I think, stands up. I think that's a decent song. I really quite like that. It's a great album opener. There's some real throwaway stuff on that album too, has to be said. But Dr. Feelgood is still, it's solid by Motley Crue standards. It's not an album I go and pull it and listen to a lot, but it's probably the standout to the point where it fell apart.
Yeah.
And then to me, yes, the Karabi album musically is not related to anything else before or after. It's a complete aberration.
Yeah.
It's a genuine, excellently constructed album that I really like from start to finish. And then the ones after, I haven't heard them all, to be fair, but I think the couple that came after, what was the one with the pigs on the front? What was that?
Generation Swine.
That's atrocious.
Yeah.
And then the one with the dragon on the front. I did own these. I don't own them now. Really, I find those albums absolutely turgid. I think they're absolutely terrible. No excuse for a band at this level to be releasing albums as bad as that. I'll get hate in the comments. I'm sorry if you're a Crue fan, but you can only say what you feel.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So there you have it, everybody. Ranking the songs of Shout at the Devil by Motley Crue. That's our classic album today. And we'll be doing more of these in the future. Steven, you want to announce next week's show? Does everybody know what we're doing?
Well, next week's show, what we're doing, we're going back to the favourite, least favourite, and wild card. And I think there are lots of options for all 3 categories. I'm finding this really difficult. We're doing Scorpions. That's what we're doing. It's a really vast catalogue. Not maybe quite as vast for the length of time they were together, but I think there's 19 studio albums. There are more compilations than I can count. An incredible amount of compilations. And there are some seminal live albums in there too. And lots of little curios. It's a great catalogue. I am listening to it all from front to back as we speak because I want to. Not because I don't know the albums, but because I really want to. Because there's so much good stuff in there. Some stuff that's not quite so good.
Yeah.
So yeah, Scorpions is what's next.
Sounds good. So stay tuned for that a week from today, the following Saturday. And in the meantime, visit us on the web at www.seaoftranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube all together all the damn time. And now it's time for Simon to play along. And don't forget, on October 1st, Sea of Tranquility Fall Fest at the Chance in Poughkeepsie, New York. Join us for our Sea of Tranquility Fall Fest. We've got a star-studded lineup all day, starting doors open at noon. In the afternoon, we're going to be doing In the Prague Seat, Hudson Valley Squares, Friday morning at the Funhouse with Martin Popoff, as well as Q&As with Chris Caffrey from Sabotage Trans-Iberian Orchestra and Andy Powell, legendary guitarist and vocalist from Wishbone Ash. And then we've got Louis Nasser's band, Sonus Umbra. We've got Epic Tantrum, great prog band from upstate New York. And then, of course, the classic stuff with Pat Travers' band, Vanilla Fudge, and Nectar, all happening in the evening. So don't want to miss it. Get your tickets if you haven't already. And Stay tuned for Scorpions next week here on UK Connection. For Simon Bray and Steven Reid, I am Pete Pardo. We'll see you then, everybody. Have a good rest of the week, and we'll see you tomorrow on Ranking the Albums. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.